civil society colleagues, my fellow Rohingya and people of Myanmar, I am honored to speak to you today. My name is Wei Wei. I am the founder and executive director of Women's Peace Network, an organization advancing human rights, justice, gender equality, and peace. I thank the President of the General Assembly and her team, the Bangladesh Mission, and all member states for making this conference possible. This is a historic occasion for Myanmar, but it is long overdue. Our people have suffered enough. For ethnic minorities from Kachin to Rohingya, the suffering has spanned decades. Decades of displacement, oppressions, violence, and decades of inactions on war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. That cycle must end today. The conference must be the beginning of change, of a lasting solution over a temporary fix, one that is grounded in a pathway for the future that people of Myanmar define. We cannot just walk away from today after a series of statements. Instead, we need a concrete follow-up mechanism, one that ensures sustained monitoring of the result of today's conference, clear benchmarks, and above all, the meaningful inclusions of the community's voices in all decisions about their futures. And it must immediately end the ongoing killing fields in Myanmar. As I speak, the Burmese military junta is continuing to commit mass atrocities all across the country. Airstrikes are killing women and children, youth are being forcibly conscripted, political prisoners are tortured, women and girls and LGBTQI+ people are raped as weapon of war. In Rakhine State, after decades of genocide, the Rohingya are facing a total, complete destruction. The junta Bloc 8 recruits Rohingya as human shield and continues systematic persecution. The genocide did not end in 2017. It has worsened. Rohingya are now being targeted by Arkan army, the AA. Over the past 2 years, the AA has seized control of much of Rakhine, including the north and Bangladesh border. Despite promises, its actions mirror the junta: massacre, arson, torture, forced recruitment, forced transfer of people, and sexual violence. It is now denying aid to the Rohingya and is systematically starving them to death by confining them and restricting their movement. In northern Rakhine State, there has been no UN or international aid for over a year. Like the military, the AA is denying its atrocities, even publicly bashing UN reports on Myanmar. And like the military, the AA is denying the Rohingyas' indigenous identity, calling the Rohingya everything but their name. Meanwhile, the violence is also affecting everyone in Rakhine State. The junta is still confining 120,000 Rohingya in internally displaced persons camps in Sittwe. There, the military continues to abuse and deny basic human necessity, forcing them to suicide or flee by boat. The military is also attacking areas with ethnic Rakhine, Kamen, Dainet, Mro, and other minorities. Just a couple of weeks ago, the military bombed a boarding school at night, killing dozens of Rakhine children and injuring many. No one is spared. It is also true that armed groups that are undemocratically claiming to represent the Rohingya have collaborated with the military. The AA has taken these as excuses to inflict collective punishment on Rohingya civilians. And when it suits its goal, like improving image before this conference, AA would orchestrate a media campaign to whitewash its actions to the international community. But let me emphasize, a photo or video of a smiling Rohingya should never, ever erase the destruction that has been caused to the Rohingya. What the AA is doing now is detrimental to the people of Arkan and their common future. All I and my community have wanted is to live in peace with our diverse neighbor in our homeland. So if the AA also genuinely seeks coexistence, it can use its newfound power to take measures that allow for safe and voluntary return of Rohingya and ability not just to live, but thrive with equal rights. If there is a will, there is a way. It can easily protect Rohingya, allow aid to enter, hold perpetrators of atrocities accountable, and creates conditions for genuine, peaceful coexistence. Unfortunately, we know by now that that will not happen anytime soon. And the genocide victims and survivors are, when the genocide victims and survivors are at risk of exterminations by the multiple actors, there is no time to waste. The international community must immediately intervene to exercise its responsibility to protect the remaining Rohingya. Cross-border aid or a humanitarian corridor must be established along the Myanmar-Bangladesh border so that the life of the starving civilians can be saved. Targeted sanctions must be imposed on perpetrators of mass atrocities to diminish their capacity to brutalize more civilians. An independent body must be deployed to Rakhine State to monitor the situations and collect the evidence of atrocities. Without actions, Rohingya exodus will continue until there is no more Rohingya left in Myanmar. Excellencies, as long as atrocities against civilians continue, the refugee crisis will continue. This cycle of atrocities and mass displacement has spanned Myanmar's history. We saw this in 1978, in 1991, in 2017, and now again. I urge all of you to ask yourself, why do we see these patterns happening over and over again? Because for Rohingya and fellow ethnic minorities, the answer has always been clear: impunity. For 70 years, the military has escaped justice. The impunity emboldened others to follow. Ending impunity is the only way to end atrocities. Therefore, international community must end this impunity that is at the root of all atrocities. Perpetrators of atrocities against civilians must be held accountable. Justice is not optional. It is the only deterrent, the only path to peace. Effective justice and accountability initiatives are crucial in deterring actors from committing more atrocities. And with effective international support, these holistic form of deterrence can establish framework of lasting peace. Lasting peace is a necessary precondition for the repatriation Rohingya and all other refugees. Excellencies, let me emphasize this again. Lasting peace in Myanmar fundamentally depends on justice and accountability. And lasting peace can happen in a federal democracy where the Rohingya and other ethnic minorities have constitutionally granted equal rights and self-determinations and are free to exercise them. The international community thus must prioritize meaningful engagement with the pro-democracy movement over the military. All the people of Myanmar want is the military to be held accountable and kept out of politics. By now, we know that soft diplomacy is clearly not enough to change the military's illegal, brutal behavior. Soft diplomacy only prolongs the country's crisis. And when there is so much human suffering already, there is no time to waste. The international community must take all measures to dismantle its failed approach and build a practical one. I thus urge the international community to move beyond ASEAN 5-point consensus. It has failed the people of Myanmar over 4 years. There is no consensus as long as the military is free to violate it. The international community must condemn the military's upcoming sham election. Accepting election as an exit strategy will only bring more violence, thus more refugees from Myanmar. Ultimately, creating conditions for more mass displacement is impractical, especially when the will and capacity to protect refugees is diminishing. From Bangladesh to Malaysia, funding cuts have devastated the life of over 1 million refugees, as well as the hundreds of thousands of more people in exile from Myanmar. Government must immediately resume their life-saving aid and expand it. Steps must be taken to strengthen refugees' resiliency. Like Thailand, host countries must allow refugees to at least work. And access to education is critical for refugee children, especially Rohingya youth in Cox's Bazar. The international community must fulfill its duty to protect refugees. Instead of detentions, deportation, provide access to the safe disembarkations, asylum, and domestic legal processes. Protection is especially crucial for Rohingya women and girls. They continue to face brutal forms of violence as refugees, even after fleeing genocide. This is intolerable. Excellencies, you already have the evidence. You already have the power. What is missing is the political will. The people of Myanmar demand accountability and an end to impunity and an end to oppressions. Let this conference be a historic turning point, the end of missed opportunities and the beginning of the lasting solution. Thank you.